Let's move on to James Harden, though, guys, because his saga with the Rockets, yeah, still there. Yesterday, our Tim MacMahon published a really interesting piece with some behind-the-scenes details of Rockets culture the past few years. MacMahon spoke to former Rockets staffers. And look, none of this is a big shock, right? A former Rockets assistant coach said of Harden, quote, "We knew who the boss of the organization was. That's just part of the deal was when you go to Houston. The players, coaches, GM, owner all know." The same assistant also said, quote, "I don't blame James. I blame the organization. It's not his fault. He did what they allowed him to do." A member of last season's coaching staff added this: "If they have multiple days off, everybody knows James is going to fly somewhere else and party. But he's then going to come back and have a 50-point triple-double, so they're okay with it." Perk, we know superstars in this league granted a certain amount of leeway, but how much is too much for an organization to allow?
Well, here's the thing, Rachel, is that James Harden is grown. Last time I checked, he's a grown man. So just because they gave him, those type of superstar privileges, that don't mean it was the Rockets' fault. This is done all around the league when superstars get privileges. It's James' fault that he abuses the privileges and goes above and beyond. What was the Rockets supposed to do? Fine him, suspend him? He's the guy that's been leading the league in scoring for the last 3 years, an MVP candidate, a guy who's was almost close to averaging a triple-double. James Harden, I mean, what do ownership or the front office is supposed to tell James? Don't do this, we're going to fine you, and he's coming back and delivering on the court? James has to be to blame for this.
Perk, you played on a lot of different teams with a lot of different stars. Is what James Harden was asking for that much different than what other stars around the league get away with on a regular basis?
Well, I'll repeat your question again, Nick. I'm sorry.
Is what Harden was asking for and what he was doing in Houston, is that much different than what all kinds of stars around the league do on a regular basis?
No, it's not that much difference. I know a lot of stars that ask for, certain players or ask for certain demands in the organization. Right now, we just started off showing Kawhi Leonard. Last time I checked, he's taking a helicopter to San Diego every day after practice. He's late for team playing. So, I mean, it comes with being a $100 million player.
I think that's the key, though, and you said it earlier, Perk. It's what you do with those privileges, right?
Yes.
Because it is a back and forth. And by the way, James Harden is far from the first person to be in this situation. Let's go back to the Jordan rules and Michael Jordan, right? Or on this show when Grant Hill came on with Tracy McGrady and had to inform him of the dinner he had been at with Tim Duncan and Doc Rivers when they were both playing in Orlando, where Tim asked if his fiancée, now wife, could come on the team plane, and Doc, trying to hold the line on special privileges, said no. And Tim Duncan didn't end up in Orlando with those guys. And T-Mac and Grant were just out of their head years later that it didn't happen. They were like, let her on the damn plane. So obviously, we have seen this for decades. The issue, though, is what you do with those superstar privileges and how each player who gets them uses his judgment on whether it hurts or helps the team. And by the way, it's a sliding scale, and there's a lot of wiggle room there. But a great example in Tim MacMahon's story was Russell Westbrook, who had those same exact privileges, right, in Oklahoma City. That entire organization was built around him. But being built around Russ means that you were built around his need for everything to be organized, everything to be on time. Russ loves things a very particular, certain, steady way. So that was actually good for the organization that they built that around his schedule. Well, he then got to Houston, and it was the opposite with James Harden. Tim MacMahon details the late planes, late practices, and that was one of the reasons that Russ wanted a trade. So it is a sliding scale. It happens in every team across the years, but it didn't work out in Houston, and they are bearing the fruit of that now. All right, guys, before we go to break, I do want to take a quick second to mention that today, the NBA Foundation announced a total of $2 million in inaugural grants that will drive economic empowerment in Black communities through employment and career advancement. 7 organizations, including this great program, the Knowledge House, have been selected as the recipients of the first grants from the foundation. Kudos to the foundation and a very important step toward equality. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.